right, hello everyone. My name is Sam. I'm an artist from Brooklyn, New York. I hope everybody is doing well today. I'm saying good morning because where I am in New York, it is 9 a.m. in the morning. I know people are tuning in and it is evening where you're at. So good evening, good morning. And I'm really excited because today we're going to be making story windows. I just want to quickly say we are very grateful to the Abu Dhabi Early Childhood Authority for allowing this incentive to become a reality. And we're really excited to be making some art today. And hopefully I can show you a few things that you can do with your children at home. Know that you can always modify these projects so they fit your situation. You can scaffold them down, you can use different materials, but I kind of want to just give you a blueprint for what you can do with your child on a rainy day like today. Well, it's rainy in Brooklyn today. So I'm going to share my screen with you for a moment. And I just want to show you the artist that this project was inspired by. Her name is Betty Saar. This is a picture of her. She is still alive and well. She is in her 90s. So she is doing great. Betty Saar is a Los Angeles-based artist known for creating collage and assemblage artworks. And when I say assemblage, I mean that she uses a lot of found materials. She uses things she finds in her home, things she finds on the street, and she creates these kind of collage sculptures with them. Her work tackles issues of race and politics, and she draws inspiration from stories. And she's known as a visual storyteller. And visual storytelling is such a great way for your child to express themselves, because when they're young, they are such great storytellers. They have such imagination and such creativity, and it's really fun to channel that energy visually. So I'm just going to show you a few of her pieces. So this one is amazing, and it was really the big inspiration for what we're going to be doing today. Obviously, we're not going to be doing anything this complicated, but if you show even an image like this to your children, it's really great to kind of ask them, what do they think the story is here? What could be happening? Where does this story take place? And we're only seeing little glimpses into the story. What could be revealed here? So there's all these little parts that make up this one big artwork, which is kind of what we're going to do on a smaller scale today. I'm just going to show you one more window. This is more along the lines of what we're going to be doing today. This window is kind of broken down into smaller little panels. When I look at this, I see kind of night and day. I see kind of conscious versus subconscious. And I know that's a little complicated, but it's fun to kind of show your child these pictures and ask them, what do they think is happening here? What kind of story could this be telling? But anyway, I'm going to hop right into the project. And I'm just going to adjust my camera for a moment so that you can see what I am doing while I'm doing it. So just bear with me for one moment. All right. Move this a little bit. Okay, hopefully now you can kind of see the materials that I'm working with. All right. So what I have that I'm working with today are two pieces of cardboard, and I cut them both out. They are in 12 by 5 inches. So it's two identical 12 by 5 inch pieces. And with this cardboard, you can use it from a box. You can use it from a cereal box. I found an old speaker box that I had lying around the house, and I cut these two pieces. So you can really find this material anywhere. Cardboard's usually pretty easy to get your hands on, but if you have a hard time finding it, you can also use paper, or you could use foam core. It's really whatever you're able to kind of get your hands on. But so we have these two identical pieces. And what we're going to do is we're going to start off with the first piece. And this is where we're going to kind of build our story, where your children are going to build their story. Now they can draw or paint directly on the cardboard. I cut out this little piece of paper that's the same size as my cardboard because I think it's easier sometimes to work on a white background. You can make that decision. I'm going to do a white background, but again, totally up to you. So I'm just going to hot glue this on really quickly, this white background. Just a little line of glue around. Hot glue is the best for crafting. I would definitely recommend it. If you don't have, but you should do it, not your child, unless they're a little advanced. But if you don't have hot glue, that's totally fine. You can use Elmer's glue, you can use a glue stick. It's really about kind of working with what you have, especially during these times. So we're not very picky with materials. Again, I'm just gonna try and get my camera a bit of a better angle so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so my next step is I'm gonna take a ruler. So I have this piece of paper glued onto my cardboard. And I'm gonna take a ruler and I'm just gonna make a mark on my 12-inch piece at the 4-inch line and the 8-inch line. And then I'm gonna do the same at the bottom. I'm just gonna make a quick mark at the 4-inch line and the 8-inch line. Okay, and I'm gonna make a line here. Oh, I also forgot to add that if you have any questions throughout this presentation, please feel free to put them in the chat box. And at the end, there'll be a time to answer these questions. We might not be able to get to all of them. I think we will, honestly. So if you have any questions about anything, just add it in the chat box and I'll be happy to answer it to the best of my abilities at the end. So again, I'm making, so I made these 2 lines. So my story window is now divided into 3 sections. And for the first 2 boxes, I want your child to draw a character for the story. So it could be a protagonist and an antagonist. It could just be 2 characters that really like each other. It could be 2 friends. It could be 2 enemies, whatever they can think of, any characters they can think of, that's going to go in boxes 1 and 2. And then in box 3, we're going to put the setting for our story. Now for materials for this part, you can use whatever drawing materials you have at home. Again, we're not picky. I'm going to use some watercolors today, but again, use whatever you have on hand. And you can get creative with materials. You could try using chalk, see how that works, kind of experiment a bit. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a dragon, maybe. And I'm going to kind of do a simplified version for time's sake. I'm gonna make a dragon in my first box. I'm just gonna take 5 minutes to make these quickly so you can get the gist. Okay. So I'm just making a dragon. And the reason that I pick watercolor a lot, especially when I'm working with younger children, is it's really easy to manipulate. And it's really fun to kind of experiment with and see how you can layer colors, what different things you can do. I think I'm gonna add a little bit of purple, see how that looks to the belly of my dragon. And I'll just have fun with it again. I'm gonna do a really simplified dragon. For time's sake, I'm gonna make a big wing. And I'll make him some legs. Legs. And that's the other thing with watercolor. I know I'm really hyping up watercolor, but I really do love it, is that you can start off really simple and then go in, get really detailed. You can leave it to dry and then you can always rework it. So it's just a really fun material, I think. All right, I'm gonna add maybe some scales to my dragon. Give him some scales. Again, your child doesn't have to make a dragon. They could make an animal. It could be a person. It could be mom or dad. It could be grandma. It could be a best friend. It could be anybody that they want to make for their character. And encourage them to kind of have conversations about their stories. Always kind of push them to expand on what they're talking about on what they're creating. Again, I just think that children have like the most beautiful imaginations ever. And these are the ages when you really can explore their imagination. And making my silly little dragon. Maybe I'll make some moves a bit. And we're going to go really quick for time's sake. Give him some fire coming out of his mouth real quick. And again, they can get really elaborate with like decorating the background of these. But for now, we're just gonna go super simple. Eyeball. His back legs are really silly. It's okay. All right. Very silly dragon. But again, you can go into it with pen after. You can go into it with a lot more detail. For my next character, maybe I'll do a big bird. And you want to encourage questions like, how do these two characters know each other? How do they relate to one another? You could further this project by making puppets of these characters afterwards, or more drawings, or even a little book about them. You get creative. You can make it as silly as you want. Another fuzzy bird. You can go back in with a drier brush. That's something that you can always do to add detail. Okay, I have my dragon and my bird. And then for the last panel, what I want to do is I'm going to make my setting or my background to where my story takes place. So I'm just going to go in there with a lot of green. I'll say that my story takes place in a forest. And again, remember, you can go into these with much more detail. We're just doing a super quick version. Something that's kind of fun that you can do with watercolor is you can be a little bit more abstract. So I'm just going to say that these are the colors of my forest that I'm going to make. I'm just going to make a little yellows and some greens. It will look kind of pretty when we reveal it in our story window. Go in with all my colors. Add some blues. This is just the background of my story. You can have your child. It's fun to watch the watercolor bleed too. It can even be a project in itself. Okay, so I have my two characters and my background. Now I'm going to go and put this to the side for a moment. And I'm going to take out the second piece of cardboard that we had in the beginning. And remember, this is cut 12 by 5 the same way that the first piece was cut. And all I've done is you can see that I made these lines, right? So I made a line at the 1/2 inch mark, the 4-inch mark, the 4.5 inch mark, the 8-inch mark, and the 8.5 inch mark. And now what you're going to do is you're going to cut the 4-inch line clean down and the 8-inch line. And you can cut it with a pair of scissors. You can cut it with a box cutter. I'm going to use an X-Acto knife, but I'm just going to the, again, remember the 4-inch line, and I'm going to cut right on that line. Perfect. Again, if you're doing this part, I suggest maybe you do this part for your child, and the decorating and painting can be more where they shine. You can do the cutting and the I have my first door for my window, and then I'm going to cut on the 8-inch line. The 8-inch line was this line right here. I'm going to cut that 8-inch line. Now what I have are my 3 doors that are going to go into my story window. Okay. And so the next part, I'm going to score this line. And when I say score, I mean that I'm not going to go all the way through the cardboard. When you score, you kind of lightly press. You're just kind of going into the first layer of the cardboard. What that's going to allow you to do is bend this piece. So now I can bend my door. I'm going to do that with my other 2 pieces as well. So remember, again, I'm going to score it. So that just means that I'm going to line it up at that line that I have left on my door. I'm going to hold down my ruler, and I'm going to press a little bit more gently with my X-Acto. You can use just a razor edge for this part. You can use a scissor. I think it would be a little bit more difficult. Now I can bend door so that we'll be able to open them. And then I'm just going to do it with my 3rd piece. Again, it's not perfect. I cut it a little deep on that one. That's okay. So we have our 3 doors. So let's take out our first piece again. And now we're going to attach our doors. So they're going to open like this, right? We want them to open so they can reveal our story. So you're not going to hot glue the whole edge, the whole thing. You're just going to hot glue the back of this little piece. So again, if you don't have hot glue, you can use Elmer's glue or a glue stick, whatever you have. You can even use tape, but hot glue works the best. I'm just going to glue down that edge. And so after I glue it down, give it a minute, I'm able to open and see my dragon. I'm going to do the same thing with this piece. I'm just going to glue this edge. All right, I'm going to glue edge. I'm going to line it up perfectly with this piece. So press, press, press. And then now I can open this door. Open both of my doors now. Whoop, didn't wait long enough for it. And as you can see, my dragon's head got a little bit cut off. So you want to be mindful that the edge of the paper is going to be covered, which I wasn't. So just keep that in mind. So now we have 1 door, 2 door. And then we're just going to do our setting window. And again, we're just going to put glue on that edge. I'm just going to line it up. These are all lined up. Press, press. Again, it's a little over. I might clean that up a bit on the edge, but the scissor just to make it a little bit cleaner. And then there you have it. You have 1, 2, 3 little windows, and you can hang this up as such. You could go like this. When you're showing it, or when your child wants to show it, they can show their story like this. They can hold it up and they can go door number 1, door number 2, and door number 3. But the next step is kind of fun. I would decorate your doors. This is kind of the assemblage part, the collaging part. That's really, really fun. You can find water bottle caps around your house, buttons, all different types of stuff. I'm gonna decorate mine with some construction paper. You can get more creative, so let's do that part together. Again, sorry, I'm taking you upside down, but let's. Okay, so I'm gonna start to decorate my doors. Maybe, and you can use hot glue for this part. Actually, another really great idea, a really fun kind of design tool for kids is tape. I'm gonna use some colorful tape, and that way you don't even need to use glue. And I'm gonna decorate my first door with some green tape. Press it down. Press it down. I'm gonna kind of collage and make a picture with tape. Get some different, more fun colors in there. I'm gonna take some blue tape. I think colorful tape is really underrated and you should always have it on hand. You can make thinner pieces and thicker pieces. I'm just gonna make kind of a little abstract design with my tape and cover my door. Cover the whole thing. You could even try, and if you have the watercolors on hand, watercolor on top of the cardboard. It would definitely be an experiment. It's not going to show up super saturated or pigmented, but you could try it. And I'm just covering my whole thing. You can bend these pieces under. I'm going to get some more colors because I have a ton of different colors tape. Add some pink to mine. And it makes these doors look really interesting. Kind of adding all these different layers. I'm going to do some thinner pieces. Switch it up a bit. Kind of making a mosaic with tape. Here. I'm going to go in with maybe some red tape. You can order rolls of colored tape online from like any craft or art supply store too. So I just think that they're fun to work with because the tape can become its own little work of art. And I'm just kind of layering all different pieces and covering the whole. More orange pieces. You want to transform this cardboard and make it look like something totally new. Another talking point is kind of upcycling. I would say this project is definitely upcycling. It's taking something that maybe you would have thrown away and giving it a new life. And so that's really fun to do. Just kind of layering. And the reason the tape is so great is that you don't have to use any glue. It's kind of making this interesting design. I think I'm going to use movie tape for all of my doors. And you can have the design on the door kind of correspond with what's underneath it. I don't know how this corresponds to a bird, but you could make it more designed for what the door reveals. Okay. That door is nice and covered. I think I'm going to start with a red base for my first door. I'm just going to again tape, but remember, you don't have to use tape. You can use things you find around your house. Sometimes yarn is really fun to collage with. You can totally use Elmer's glue and yarn. My dragon. I feel like red kind of corresponds to a dragon, right? Fiery. Mine's coming a little bit more to life, I think. Red door. I have my kind of crazy door that open. And then what should I do on my last door? I'm gonna do blue. Since I said it was kind of a green forestscape, maybe I'll go in with some greens, tape on top. Remember, I'm not taping it all the way around because I want this door to be open. So you can tape it around the first piece, but don't tape it to the second piece because then you won't be able to open your door. You won't be able to see the beautiful artwork that you created. Let's go in with some thin green pieces. Just really layering. And, you know, if you're like, oh, I really like the tape idea, but my child kind of has a hard time tearing tape, because I know that it's not the easiest fine motor skill. But if your child does have a hard time with that, you can just rip off a big strip for them and put it at the edge of the table, or rip off different size strips for them and hang them off the edge of the table, and then they can just pull them off themselves. Because when I've taught in the past, I've noticed that depending on their age, some students have a really hard time ripping the tape. In that case, you just rip them some different sized pieces to choose from. I have a darker green. I'm going to mix it up. Darker green. Pieces. This one. I think I might go back into my first door and make it have flames on it so that it kind of represents the dragon that's behind it. You could also go even further with this project, and it doesn't have to be a 12 by 10 piece of cardboard. You could make, you don't have to make 3 4-inch boxes. You could triple that or quadruple it and make so many boxes with so many different parts of your story, or kind of lay it out like a comic strip from beginning to end. Have your first box of your story, your second, your third, and so on. So you can really make this as elaborate or as simple as you want. And a couple more light green pieces. Flames on the dragon door. And it's also kind of teaching your child how hinges work on a door, how it opens and shuts. You could get more complicated with it if you wanted. Again, it's all kind of what your child is comfortable at, what you think their developmental level is. So, you know your child best. All right, that door is kind of cool. Got that door that opens here, this door that opens to my little bird, and this door that we're gonna make some fire on for our dragon. So I guess for fire, I would just build up some, again, I'm just ripping all different sizes. I'm gonna build up some orange pieces. Trying to make it look something like fire. I have some yellow tape that I can put. Wow. It'll help if some of the pieces are a little bit more pointed. Another good thing with the tape is you can always put more tape on top of it if you don't like the way that it looks. So it's not like a super, you're not kind of married to the idea of what your art looks like. You can always build on top of it. It's starting to look a little bit more bright. Building it. Make sure to seal down and press down your tape, otherwise it's going to keep coming up kind of like mine was. And you can kind of decide the direction of the story if you want. You can prompt your child with, okay, if there was a monster that took over a town, what would that story look like? What would the characters look like? If you were making a story that took place in a jungle, what would some of the animals look like? So just if you wanted to kind of have an exact direction to go in, you could kind of phrase it like that and present the project like that. And I don't really see any questions popping up, so I'm just going to kind of go through as I'm making this some frequently asked questions that I've had in the past. For materials, again, if you feel like, oh, I don't have access to this material, there's always ways to kind of swap out one material or kind of make your own. For watercolors, if I didn't have watercolors and I had food coloring, I would just use food coloring. You add just a few drops of the color you want of food coloring into a cup of water. And if you want it to be more saturated, obviously you add more drops. If you want it to be a little lighter, you add less. And then you have kind of a consistency that's similar to watercolor. So food coloring is a good alternative to watercolor paint if you don't have access to that. And if you can't get colored tape, but you like the way that this kind of collaging is going, you could just use pieces of construction paper, just different colored pieces of construction paper, and sort of glue those down. Or magazines. It'd be really cool if you wanted to collage the covers or the doors of our story windows with magazines. And this could be a multiple session project. You could say, okay, we're going to start one day, we're just going to paint and draw the first step. And then the next day, we're going to work on outside of the windows. Okay, I think that I need some yellow in this fire to make it look more fiery. Grab my yellow tape. Add doorknobs to your windows. Tiny buttons kind of placed right here would make excellent doorknobs for your doors to your windows. If you wanted to get really creative, you could open up the window and create a divide so it really looks like a window. I'll do that on one of mine. after I add my yellow, just so you can see what it looks like. It can be an option. You don't have to do it. But I'm going to go in with some yellow onto my fire. If your child is into writing stories, again, I know this is early childhood, so everybody's at different writing and reading levels, but you could have words included inside each window that kind of detail what's happening. I'm just building this up because I have time, because remember, you can always add details to projects. I think that a really common thing for kids is to do something really quickly and then be like, I'm done. I've noticed that from years of teaching art, that's like the favorite phrase of children, to be like, I'm done within 5 seconds, but you always want to try and kind of challenge them on that. Be like, oh, well, what if your dragon had clothes on or a hat, or what kind of forest is your setting? What can you add so I know where this forest is in the world? Could we add another layer onto our cover? So you can always think of adding more details and elongate a project by adding more detail. If you are using Elmer's glue, I think that I said this on my last webinar, I would say the same if you're comfortable with your child using hot glue, but I would recommend that if you do have a hot glue gun, the adult uses it, because it's really easy to burn yourself on the hot glue gun. As an adult, I still burn myself on the hot glue gun all the time. So, but if your child is using Elmer's glue, a good rule, because kids love to squeeze, 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 but a good rule is dot, dot, not a lot, to kind of chant dot, dot, not a lot. And then hopefully that'll encourage them to use a little bit less glue when they're making. I'm gonna go in again with some red. If you want, you can collage inside of your windows as well. You can really go wild with materials. And you'd be surprised what in your home can be turned into an art material. Feathers to collage, you can use leaves, you can use stamps. Possibilities are endless. Use tape, obviously. making this fire. I'm getting really into a groove here with it. I'll hold it up at the end so everybody can see the finished product. And if you think of a question after, I think that there hopefully is someplace that you can email and ask the question and someone could pass that along to me. I'm not 100% sure on that though. But again, if you have any questions, just feel free to pop them in the chat box. You could also, if you wanted, turn this into kind of a collaborative project. It could kind of be a game where each child makes, let's say if we had 3 children making this one together, each child made a different part of the story. And so you could leave the big reveal till the end. So each child made a different character in the story and then put them all together and kind of try and play out how those characters would interact or what story would happen between them. Back in orange. Like I said in the beginning, children are the best storytellers and they have the most creative imagination. So why not nurture that and encourage that? Really go wild with the tape. And it also is a good fine motor challenge to kind of see if your child can rip small pieces and big pieces, again, depending on where they're at developmentally. Little pieces, and then maybe I'll add something to the inside of my window. All right, I'm going to give the fire a break for a second. And I'm going to open up my first window. So I was working on my dragon, but oh no, my dragon's face is kind of not showing. So the good thing about watercolor is after it dries, you can go into it with pen and marker. I might outline my dragon and make it a little bit more detailed. And again, his face is hidden, but we're just gonna deal with that one. He's a secret dragon. So you could, if you had some more time after your watercolor dries, encourage your child to go in with a marker or a Sharpie and add details. and adding my details. Add some scales maybe. My paper is still a little wet, so I'm trying to be as gentle as I can. Oopsie, I made a little rip, so you want to wait till paper's relatively dry. Just adding some scales. Some little scales. I moved it a little bit so you can see the space. I can just reglue it. And I'm going to continue adding my scales. He's got a little bit more personality now. That one's sweet. All right. Close that. But I pulled it up a little bit, so I'm just gonna, you can always reinforce it with a little bit more glue. Reinforce it with a little bit more glue. Dot, dot, not a lot, like we talked about. Just press it again. Come on, we can close it. Okay. So should we add anything to our bird? I think so. Go over his eyes a little bit. Got a little runny there. Maybe add some more berry spots. Make him a very furry bird. Get that wing. Line these feet a little bit. Maybe. Now I know we said that our setting is kind of a green dense forest, but maybe we could make a background for our bird as well. I'm going to make it nighttime in the forest where the bird is. Stars around him. This is what I mean when you can always encourage your child to kind of add more detail to the thing that they're working on. Moon in the sky. So I have my dragon. I have my bird. It's hanging out at night. And then maybe now I can go back into this little painting that I did. I might go in and add some trees since I did say it was a forest. I'm just going to go over it with a little bit of watercolor. Maybe add some trees. some brown trees in there. Make my trees that are in the foreground a little bit darker. And the trees that are in the background a little lighter. Got my forest going on. Remember, you can do something kind of similar to this with watercolor. So don't fret if you feel like you don't have access to, I mean, with food coloring rather. Do something similar with food coloring. So don't fret if you don't have access to watercolors. And if you have like acrylic paint, you can water it down, or tempera paint. If you have that in your house, you can use that kind of as a watercolor as well, and just really dilute it with some water. I'll make a little moon. It's a full moon, even though there was a crescent in the last picture. All right. We'll add a little color to my duckman, or my bird. Dance some blues in there to make it a little bit more colorful. Again, remember with watercolor, you can always layer. All different shades of blue. Purple too. Apologize for the honks happening outside. Sorry. Somebody's car alarm is going a bit berserk. So I'm just going to show you the little finished product. So you have your story window that you can hang up like this. I have my fiery dragon that lives back here. Then I have my bird that lives in this window. And then I have the setting of my story, that's the forest. So you can hang it up. It's very interactive. Remember that you can kind of push this project. It doesn't have to be, this is kind of, again, a simplified version. You can take it to the next level. You can add pieces that kind of come off and are more three-dimensional, because this is kind of two-dimensional and flat, but it actually has that three-dimensional element of the doors opening for your window. But you could take it even further and make it a little bit more sculptural. But this is just something that's kind of fun to hang up maybe in the bedroom for your child to kind of open and interact with. And you can make this way bigger. You can make more of these, but I just think it's a really, really fun project that you can kind of take in any direction that you want to. Wherever you want to take it. I really recommend collaging with tape on the cover though, because I think it's really fun. And it's really interesting to see what kind of different designs students can come up with. And you can work on it with your child. You guys can collaborate. Maybe one person can do a door, your child could do a different door. So have fun with it if you can. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope that this was helpful. And again, if you have any questions, I hope that those can get to me. And I hope that you enjoyed making these story windows with me. Thank you for tuning in.